This is a lovely Asian-inspired beef broth, and I'm going to be serving it with Singaporean thin noodles. This is delicious. It's a real fusion of flavours because instead of doing the classic Vietnamese-style broth, which is a pho, this one actually has a bit of Japanese miso. Now, I've just placed a nice big pot onto a medium heat. I'll add some vegetable oil to the pot. So for the basis of this broth, 2 spring onions. So I'll need the white part to fry off, and I won't get rid of the green part because I can use that as a garnish later on down the track. Into the oil, along with 3 cloves of garlic that I've finely sliced. And we just want to soften that, not too much colour at all. Now, to give this broth a really lovely savoury flavour, I'll be using quite a lot of fresh shiitake mushrooms. Look how beautiful they are. I was lucky enough to get these from my greengrocer this morning, but if you can't find fresh shiitake mushrooms, you could use dried shiitake mushrooms. They work a treat too. So I'm just slicing them, and as I slice them, I'll pop them in the pot along with our garlic and our spring onions. I'm not peeling them because there's lots of nutrients in the skin and it gives it more flavour. And just coat that in that garlic oil and they'll start to soften a little bit. We don't need too much colour on our mushrooms too because they're going to cook slowly in the broth. Now let's add the broth. This is chicken stock, but you could use vegetable stock for this, 1 litre. And now we can add our miso. So a generous tablespoon can go in. Might even add a little bit more. And I like white miso because it has a sweet taste to it. There are many varieties of miso. You can get dark miso, red miso. They tend to be a little bit more salty, and you can absolutely use them in this soup, but just use it sparingly. And after this starts to boil away for about 10 minutes, it will start to dissolve. And to give this broth a nice deep colour, I'll add some dark soy. Small amount of dark soy. We can always add a little bit more at the end to taste. And then now we'll just let that bubble away. We'll boil it for about 10 minutes, then we can add our vegetables. Now, using inspiration from the classic Vietnamese soup pho, I'm going to be adding some raw beef. Now, use a really good quality fillet of beef for this. You'll just remove it from the pack. And I use fillet of beef because it's super lean and it cooks really fast when the broth is poured over it. So I'm going to cut this with a sharp knife into really thin slithers, just like that. Now, my knife is super sharp, so it's quite easy to cut this thin, but a little trick is to place the fillet of beef, covered in a bit of cling film, into the freezer for about an hour. The beef will firm up, and it'll be much easier for you to cut if you want it to be as thin as that. And you really do want it that thin because you want it to cook instantly as soon as that broth is poured over it. So I'm going to continue cutting this. I'll keep it nice and chilled to the last minute, and then we'll add our veggies to the soup. Now this soup smells fantastic. It's almost ready. It's time to add the vegetables. But before I do the vegetables, I want to get my noodles ready. And I'm using Singaporean noodles. They're fantastic for stir frying, but they're also really good in a soup just like this. See how thin they are? So they're not going to overpower the soup. So it'll be a nice balance of broth to meat to noodles. Now place them in a bowl, and these take 3 minutes just to soften up with some hot water. And we'll pour that water straight over the noodles just to cover them. And we'll put them to the side, and you'll see they'll start to separate. Now for our veggies, these won't take long at all. It's all about order when it comes to adding the veggies to the broth. So a little bit of bok choy. Look how cute these baby corn are, so sweet. And I'll cut them down the centre. I'll just add a small handful of these. You can add whatever veggies you like in your soup. You can just keep it really basic by just having those gorgeous mushrooms or lots of different greens. So these go in first, corn, and then some sugar snap peas. I've just topped and tailed them. Nice large handful. We want to keep the crunchiness in them so they won't take long at all. And then last but not least, our bok choy. So the base can go in first. Just hold it there for a little bit so they steam ahead of time, and then just let those veggies wilt from the top. Now let's plate up. So our noodles will be ready. Bring that over here. Just using tongs, separate them See how they start to break up? Fantastic, nice fresh noodles. And then we'll put them into the bowl first. Lovely little nest on the base. And just twist it so it sits up proudly. Then our beef can go on top of this. So our raw beef, a few little strips per person, a little bit more. And now for the vegetables and the broth. I'll just use my tongs again. We'll take out 1 piece of bok choy in there. We'll get our sugar snap peas and a gorgeous little corn because they're so cute. A few of those. And our mushies. And now we'll add a generous ladleful of our broth over the top. A little bit more of the liquid. See how it starts to cook the beef automatically? So by the time you eat that, it'll be pretty much medium to well done. So you don't have to worry about it being rare on top of our noodles. Now for the final garnish, some fresh herbs, coriander, a few sprigs can go on top. And I love the addition of these dark spring onion tops, which is cut on an angle and super fine. And then just for one more garnish, I can't help myself, I have to add some bean sprouts. You totally don't need to add all of these toppings, but I love it in this soup. That is such a heartwarming soup. It's definitely a fusion with that combination of miso and then that Vietnamese inspiration with the beef going on to the noodles. It's delicious, and like I said, that is a whole meal in itself and super healthy.